This week, we see the past, present, and future, the aftermath of two disappointing campaigns. We see the potential return of a prominent but not powerful commander, though the present is what matters. A raid leads to a battle that leads to a crisis that ends in a conspiracy. I don't wish to leave you waiting. The main action this week is the Dahlgren Affair, not Admiral John A. Dahlgren, but his son, Colonel Ulrich Dahlgren. What has gotten the young colonel in trouble, you ask? Well, now that is a story. This entire story is marred in controversy, which I will cover at the end. So we will review what can be agreed upon until then. Richmond is home to the Confederate government and thousands of Union prisoners across many different camps. If a precise raid could reach Virginia's capital, a massive amount of logistic infrastructure could be destroyed, and many brave soldiers could be freed. The need for speed is felt. An estimated 1,500 captured Americans die each month under the brutal care of Davis. At the first sign of weakness, the Union must strike. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton gets the report. The Confederate Home Guard is weak. Now is the time. The choice to lead this raid is obvious. Brigadier General Judson Kilpatrick. Kilpatrick, also known as Kill Cavalry, is reckless but effective, cutting swaths through the Confederate territory, drunk and losing many men's lives, but my God, he is a winner. For this raid, he recruits Colonel Dahlgren. Ulrich lost a leg at Gettysburg and had a fire in his soul, driving him to join the war again. To go along with the main Dahlgren-Kilpatrick action is a diversion from the Hussar Custer. 1,500 men under General George Custer will ride to Charlottesville, Virginia, seize supplies, and destroy the infrastructure. The 28th sees the raid leave Union territory and start their long trek. By sunrise on the 29th, Custer was spotted and anticipated. But he still has a chance because the enemy facing off against him is 200 men with 16 cannons. This will be a slaughter. Captain Marcellus N. Morman is the Confederate commander, and when he receives word of Custer, he doesn't inform his men, which is quite weird. A Union cavalry detachment is ordered to move in to surround their opponents. He begins crossing over a river to reach Charlottesville. 4 trains then arrive. Are those reinforcements? Morman reacts quickly, ordering the withdrawal of many cannons. The rest will be used to delay Custer. The Federal cavalry reaches the camp as the full rebel artillery is withdrawn, and the Union attacks itself when the detachment charges in. Oh God, no. Morman increases the confusion by having his artillerymen pick up any arms they have and mount any horses they can. Custer believes the enemy outnumbers him, and BAM! A rebel caisson goes off within the camp. Panic. The Union flees. It wasn't a massacre. 1 Union soldier was very slightly wounded, and 2 Confederates captured. Well, that was disappointing. Hopefully the rest of the raid isn't. The 28th also has Dahlgren and Kilpatrick move out. Ulrich has 500 men and is to enter Richmond first. Kilpatrick 3,500, who will attack from the north. Dahlgren soon finds himself behind schedule. His scout, a slave, directs him to a fort. The rain has made it uncrossable, and the reins of Dahlgren's saddle hang the slave. What the hell? Kilpatrick gets ahead of schedule, destroying rail lines and telegraph poles. But unfortunately, a single train car gets to Richmond, and the city's guards prepare themselves. Rebel Major General Wade Hampton takes his cavalry and gets ready to destroy the Union threat. Kilpatrick can no longer wait and decides to flee to the east, meet up with the Army of the James, and hopefully Ulrich will get the message to call off the raid. March 2nd sees Kilpatrick pursued by Hampton as Dahlgren throws himself against Richmond. Soon Ulrich's force is split up as the colonel finds himself alone with 100 men or so. He must find Kilpatrick. He rides alone through the dark when the sound of rifle fire rings out. Then another. Bang, a third. Bam, a fourth. Colonel Ulrich Dahlgren falls from his horse dead. His entire command is either killed or captured. The raid is a complete failure. What a shame. Poor coordination, lousy weather, and misfortune cost many lives. And even more will die in the prisons they were supposed to be liberating. But why is it an affair? Before going further, I must stress everything I'm about to say is disputed, down to who found the papers that will cause the controversy. When I look at dead person, a student, teacher, or soldier claimed to discover the orders for the raid. We will try and secure the bridge to the city, 1 mile below Belle Isle. and release the prisoners at the same time. If we do not succeed, they must then dash down. We will try and carry the bridge from each side. When necessary, the men must be filed through the woods and along the river bank. The bridge is once secured, and the prisoners loosen over the river, the bridges will be secured, and the city destroyed. Men must keep together and well in hand. When one's in the city, it must be destroyed and Jeff Davis and cabinet killed. This went up the chain of command to President Jefferson Davis, who reads it with Secretary Judah P. Benjamin. That means you, Mr. Benjamin. I mean, there are other members of the cabinet, but Benjamin is the only one whose death would be a loss for the Confederacy. Papers are then sent to the disposable Secretary of War, James Seddon, who decides to make them public by sending them to many local reporters, who report furiously. They compare him to Attila the Hun and report that Lincoln personally ordered it. This incites the people of Richmond. They desecrate his corpse, remove the wooden leg he had, take him from his tomb, remove his ring finger, and flay the body on train tracks. Union spy Elizabeth Van Law uses her connections to ensure Ulrich's body is moved to a better spot, where he can rest in peace. This is a blessing to Admiral John A. Dahlgren, who spent the 4th desperately trying to find out about the fate of his son, which Lincoln could not respond to. When the news reaches the nation about the affair, Admiral Dahlgren denies his son ever taking up such a task. George Meade informs Lee he did not know about such an order, and Lincoln is just as confused as anyone was. Ulrich's name wasn't misspelled, so they're probably a forgery, right? At least that's what John Dahlgren claims. Well, it could be a forgery, an order from Lincoln, or an order from Meade. Still, the most likely culprit is Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, who historian Sears believes to have authored the notorious document. When it falls into Union possession, Francis Liebe, the man who is to organize and hold onto these documents, will receive a special order from Stanton. Will have it personally delivered to him, and the order, be it a forgery or not, will never be seen again. Let's end the Meriden campaign entirely. The 26th sees Sherman skirmish as he marches back, and William Soy Smith being harassed the entire time. The 4th has Sherman reach Vicksburg. He has accomplished his goals and done nothing more. Success, but so small. Not worth the energy spent marching. Then let us end the Florida campaign. February 26 has Major General Quincy A. Gilmore express how stupid Seymour in a letter to Seymour, informing Truman that the expedition was over and that he would shrink the District of Florida as soon as the situation was stable. March 1st has Major John Hay inform Lincoln that Florida is lost and to cancel the significant operations there. Thank God. Now we just need Seymour executed for treason. Then there's the long-anticipated promotion. President Abraham Lincoln, with all the powers vested in him by the highest of all offices, nominates Ulysses S. Grant, the commander of the West, for the rank of Lieutenant General. The next day, the Upper House of Congress confirms the nomination. The first true Lieutenant General since George Washington, and the highest-ranking officer alive. This would also have Grant take on the title of General-in-Chief of the United States Army. On the 3rd, Ulysses gets a telegram to move to Washington to accept this honor. Meriden over, Florida lost. Now is the time for the next campaign. Admiral David Dixon Porter sends a force under Lieutenant Commander Ramsey to go to Louisiana and clear 2 rivers. They're sniped at and receive some battery fire, but they find no real opposition upon their return. The campaign can be started as soon as infantry arrives, under Major General Nathaniel P. Banks. Oh God, no, not Banks, anyone but him. Now for the moves of Lincoln. First, he approves a memorandum in support of Benjamin Butler. This controversial general needs the president's help. He then sends the Adjutant General Lorenzo Thomas to Mississippi. Thomas has, in the past, organized African regiments, so his expertise in issues regarding colored Americans is unmatched. After writing that, he orders the commutation of all death penalties for deserters to be instead imprisoned, solidifying his mercy. An act without mercy follows. Camp Sumter is opened near Andersonville, Georgia. Will become soon known as Andersonville Prison. About 1/3 of all those sent to this camp will die. Starvation and sickness ravaged the Union prisoners under the supervision of Captain Henry Wirz. Let's end the battle from last week. General George Henry Thomas is testing General Joe Johnston's Army of Tennessee. The Confederate line repulses the Union, losing 140 men to Thomas's 300. This proves to the Army of the Cumberland that Johnston is not weak. and the battle ends with both sides slipping back to their camps. Then there is the CSS Alabama. Captain Seams wrote of his vessel. My ship is weary too, as well as her commander, and will need a general overhaul by the time I can get her into dock. My poor service shall be deemed of any importance in harassing and weakening the enemy, thus contributing to the independence of my beloved South. I shall amply rewarded. The final action of this week, Michael Hahn took office as Union Governor. Michael Hahn promises equal education for all people regardless of color. Then there is Andrew Johnson, who is confirmed by the Senate again as military governor of Tennessee. Johnston is the most prominent Unionist Democrat and has a promising future. Last week, I left off with Sickles traveling to help a friend. That friend is Benjamin Wade, the senator from Ohio and chair of the Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War. Time for questioning has arrived. Sickles is first to raise the support for Hooker, so once Meade is out of command, the good radical Republican can resume the Army of the Potomac's victories. He succeeded well, so well that, in my judgment, when he entered upon the Chancellorsville campaign, the Army was, for its numbers, more efficient in all respects than it had ever been before. Conducted by General Hooker with all the skills and address which the circumstances of the admitted or were called for. Were his mental faculties impaired in any way when you saw him? No, sir, except that they might be by bodily suffering. I have never known him on duty to be in the least degree affected by the use of intoxicating drinks, at no time under any such influence, but as well possessed as any officer on the field. Sickles has done all he can to save Hooker. He's invited back the next day to talk about Meade, but that is for next week. That's where the week ends, and I don't know how to conclude this correspondence. The main things to discuss are over. The future is too foggy to see, and the only real thing to discuss is the Dahlgren Affair. I am so confused by it. I honestly don't know what I believe. I respect Sears as a historian, so I followed his lead. But I want to say, no matter what, Ulrich's body should not have been desecrated. This brutal act of revenge from the mob of Richmond was because they believed him to have acted dishonorable and uncouth for a gentleman and polite struggle. He didn't. But in truth, this war is anything but civil. Hello, it's the entire Civil War Week by Week team here. I would just like to thank every single one of you for watching this video. Your support means the world to me, and I really do hope to see you next week.